All right. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm going to do a little introduction and I will edit it afterwards. So I'll take out this part that we're trying to figure out how to do this. So, all right, here it goes. That's better. Hello and welcome to Conversations with Nurit. I am Nurit and I'm speaking with you today from Budapest, Hungary. And today I have a very special guest. I have with me Dr. Robert O. Young. And Dr. Young is the top leading scientist in the world today. So I'm very, very excited to speak with him today and very honored that he accepted my invitation. And Dr. Young has written over 52 books and hundreds of articles and blogs. And I can't possibly name all his degrees and accomplishments and accolades because that would fill a whole page. So I'm going to let him say more about himself when he's ready. Just a few more words about how I came to know about Dr. Young. And that was through watching the show of Charlie Ward, Dr. Charlie Ward, which I often watch. And my husband and I were watching this, and I got to tell you, Dr. Young, you had me at interstitial fluid.
Okay.
I've never heard anything that made more sense to me medically, even though I didn't quite understand it at that point yet. But the idea of fixing the environment, and I'm talking about the inner environment, the body's environment, not only the environment outside, but fixing the inner environment rather than trying to fix all the symptoms, which we assume are problems.
hmm
That, my husband and I looked at each other and we said, this guy's cracked the code to medicine. So I'm so delighted to speak with you. And I immediately wanted to get your book, which I did.
hmm
I found it very difficult to find you on Google just saying your name because Google just coughs up all the lies that they have about you. So I said, okay, if Google's writing those things about him, now I'm convinced he's the real deal. And so I got the book. We started doing the program that you write about. I read everything,
hmm
portions more than once. It's been exactly 2.5 months now. And I've got to say, I'm feeling so much better. I have more
Wonderful.
energy. I never thought I would ever become vegetarian again, since I used to be
hmm
years ago, and I replaced meat with sugar. So that didn't do much
That
for my
that
health.
no, it doesn't work. Yeah.
Not at all. So in my mind, I had the concept that being a vegetarian will make me weak, but I have more energy now than ever.
hmm
And my in I've had for years intense GERD or reflux, whatever you call it.
Acid reflux. Yeah.
So I had so many problems for so long. I've tried every diet, I've tried every healing modality, and nothing helped me. And now it's gone. It's like I haven't had since I started your diet and the supplements that we got.
hmm
Had even one attack or episode. So but enough about me. I want to hear from you and to tell our audiences um, what what is the what is it that we can do at this time and this age where things are so confusing. I just named a few of my concepts, but there's so many beliefs out there about the
hmm
body and about healing and about medicine. It's obviously that so many were taught incorrectly. When we're born, the body's introduced to us as a liability, as a problem. Don't do this, you'll get sick. Don't do that, you'll get sick. Oh, you got a stomach ache, something's terribly wrong. They don't teach us how to even navigate in this fantastic instrument that God has provided for us. So
hmm
your turn.
Okay. Well, I think you mentioned something that is challenging for a lot of people around the world, uh, and is not understood or even described by medical by the medical savants, the scientists, as it relates to the pathology of an upset stomach. And many people have imbalances within their stomach because they have this this understanding, which is actually a misinterpretation of what is really going on, of what causes an upset stomach. So if you try to find, a medical text on the causes of upset stomach, what you'll end up reading is basically an array of different symptomologies that are associated with this, but not really understanding why the stomach is upset. And so what ends up getting blamed, because it's what's left as a waste product that's associated with an upset stomach, particularly acid reflux or GERD you mentioned, which is an increased amount of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And so pharmaceutical companies have developed drugs to reduce that hydrochloric acid by turning off the cells that actually they believe produce it. But in reality, that's not the truth.
No, and they're full of aluminum too.
The truth is when you have an upset stomach, that's the body, specifically the stomach, performing a function that is frontline, meaning that it is the major organ that produces a compound that maintains the delicate pH balance of our body fluids, i.e. the main three body fluids would be vascular or blood plasma, the interstitial fluids, which are the fluids of the largest organ of the human body called the interstitium. These fluids are the fluids that surround all the cells of the body, and it's a continuum, much like the river behind you that separates Pisa from Buda, or Pest, I should say. Not Pisa, that's Italy, but Pest and Buda, i.e. together Budapest. But it's quite obvious that this river is a flowing river, very much like the interstitial fluids of our body. It flows through the city, and of course, if this river was polluted, it would affect everything on the right and everything on the left. Anything that's saturated by these fluids. The other fluids are called the intracellular fluids, and these fluids are the fluids within the cell. So when the body is trying to maintain its balance, for example, if you're exercising, you're producing a waste product called lactic acid. If you overexercise, that acid builds up, not in the blood, but it builds up in the interstitial fluid, and it's pushed out to the connective tissue if it's not buffered. Well, the stomach's purpose is to neutralize that acid. So the major purpose of the stomach is to produce a compound called sodium bicarbonate. This compound combines three elements: water, carbon dioxide or CO2, and salt, NaCl. So when H2O combines with NaCl and HCO and CO2, it becomes sodium bicarbonate. And a lot of people don't realize is that when we expel carbon dioxide, that's only 10% of what the body produces. 90% of the carbon dioxide that's is used by the stomach to produce sodium bicarbonate. So the body is a great reuser of compounds or elements that may be perceived as a waste product, but in reality, it's foundational to producing a compound that's essential to maintaining the alkaline design of all of our fluids. Now, we've been testing these fluids for many, many years, and these fluids have different pHs. Ideally, the pH of the blood is at 7.365. If that becomes compromised, the stomach will start producing sodium bicarbonate, push that out into the blood to raise it back up. Now you can do it with alcohol, you can do it with coffee, You can do it with vinegar. You can do it with soy sauce. And the way the body neutralizes this is the stomach, whether you ingest it or if it's produced metabolically, the stomach is responsible for maintaining the alkaline design of the human body. It's the master organ. Now, most of us think that the stomach is a digestive organ because one of the byproducts of sodium bicarbonate production is a waste product called hydrochloric acid. So when you have an upset stomach, it's not because of your lack of hydrochloric acid or your it's your lack of sodium bicarbonate, your lack of alkalinity. And so anytime you have an upset, it's due to either a physical or emotional stressor. You can do this with your thoughts because when you're upset about something, that requires, your thought processes and brain activity and neurological activity. And the body, of course, in a state of upset may emote or you're again an energy in motion. That's what emotion is act on that particular feeling or belief or thought that you're having. Well, anytime you're thinking, you're producing an acidic waste product. Anytime you're acting, you're producing an acidic waste product. So our thoughts and words and our deeds do matter, and they affect the alkaline design of the body fluids. The ideal pH of the body interstitial fluid is 8.4. So the body's constantly needing alkalinity because the body's functioning. And in that function, it produces an acid. And so in my research, I have stated two major hypotheses. The first one is that the human body is alkaline in its design when you're in perfect health, which is the acronym is pH. And really that pH is focused on balancing, the acidity of the body by keeping the body fluids in an alkaline state, much like the ocean. The ocean pH is ideally at 8.4, just like our interstitial fluids. And that's where healing can take place, is within that. So if you injure yourself internally or externally, the body stomach will eventually will immediately, I should say eventually, but immediately start producing alkalinity and push that alkalinity into the area of the body that needs regeneration. Okay, and this is why you get an upset stomach. The upset stomach pathology is very simply the stomach as the master organ for managing and maintaining alkalinity, neutralizing acids like lactic acid or citric acid from metabolism. Or let's say if you're eating animal protein, and you mentioned that you went from a non-plant-based diet to a plant-based diet and experienced relief. Well, of course, one of the things you eliminated were animal proteins, which produce acids, such as sulfuric, phosphoric, uric, and nitric acid. The stomach, when you eat meat, has to neutralize those acids. If it were not so, you would actually die from the toxins that are contained within that animal protein. So the body reacts to it. And probably one of the most acidic foods that you can ingest that activates the stomach is animal protein, beef, chicken, pork, eggs. Is of course on my list of acidic foods. These are some of the highest or produce the highest levels of toxicity. So that hopefully that's a simple explanation. If you look at the biochemistry or the equation of this, so you can understand it biochemically, if you have a science background, is NaCl plus H2O plus CO2 equals NaHCO3 plus HCl. So the waste product of sodium bicarbonate production is hydrochloric acid. And so that's why after you overexercise or if you eat a heavy meal, this is why you have an upset stomach, because the body's stomach, which is the major organ of alkalinity, is trying to protect yourself against toxins that could literally take your life. So when you reduce those, when you go on to a low acid diet or an alkaline diet, or you start moving towards foods that are more natural and have, and you start reducing the acid loads of the body fluids, this, of course, GERD goes away naturally.
Yeah.
The trouble with current medical science is they have this false belief, but it sells a lot of drugs. They have this false narrative that you need to take more HCl. So one of the things that you'll find on big pharma drugs is one of the major ingredients is hydrochloric acid, because they believe you need that. In reality, it just keeps you on the drugs and keeps you in this particular, area of just not feeling well. And you can't figure it out other than maybe the placebo effect that comes from this, but it's problematic. So very simply, the stomach is the master organ for managing the biochemistry and managing the pH of all of our body fluids. So this is a very important organ. I've written a paper on this, and I've published a paper on this, and it's called A New Theory. And the new theory is the stomach is not a digestive organ, but a contributor of alkalinity to maintain the alkaline design of the body. So that it's the physiology of the stomach, the functionality of the stomach is not being properly described. And when you understand what the main purpose of the stomach is, this can solve a lot of health problems, because stomach aches is one of, if not number one, the number two ailment that people suffer in the world today. One of the things that over the counter, let's say, pharmaceuticals that is given is a little pill that you put in water. Actually, it's a big pill. It's called Alka-Seltzer.
Oh.
And Alka-Seltzer contains both good and bad in there, because here again, it's not really understood by those chemists who are actually developing these drugs, but they understand that sodium bicarbonate or baking soda will help to reduce the acid in the stomach. And of course, that's a good thing, because the stomach, once again, does not digest your food. Now, how do we know that? Well, if you've ever eaten corn on the cob, or if you don't chew it well, it will pass through your so-called digestive system totally intact.
Mm.
And that's true with any food. You literally only have one instrument that the body provides in order to liquefy your food. And that's important to understand liquefaction of food, because that's the only way the body can produce stem cells out of that particular food to use it. It's not about the nutrients of the food per se, that's secondary. Primarily, any solidified food or food that hasn't been liquefied, okay, will be eliminated as waste. And the ideal pH of the small intestine, where this process takes place of biological, transformation of our liquefied food at a pH of 8.4, becomes our embryonic stem cells that become our erythroblasts, and then our erythrocytes, which are our red blood cells. So blood production or stem cell production takes place in the crypts of the small intestine. Another narrative by medical science, which is not understood, is the small intestine, needs to have a pristine environment, not of probiotics or a stomach of enzymes or that break things down, but an alkaline environment at 8.4, where food in its liquid state can be transformed into embryonic cells and then into blood. Mm. So this is a whole understanding that's critical in reversing many of the symptomologies from a stomach ache to a headache, because bowel congestion or any poor circulation that's derived from undigested food in the 9 yards of intestine will lead to a headache, which is one of the major causes of a headache. So now you have number one and number two symptomologies that are affecting people here on the planet. And so you really have to look at what you're eating if you're having these types of conditions. So that's kind of an overview of what I would suggest to people is that they look differently at the biochemistry, at the anatomy, functionality, or physiology of the stomach and the small intestine. It will literally direct you better towards better health. And it's one of the reasons why many years ago I developed a formulation of salts, compounds of sodium, potassium bicarbonate with magnesium and a little calcium, which are the four basic electrolytes or salts compounds that the stomach produces, sodium and potassium bicarbonate, to help. So very simply, if you just take a little baking soda or 4 salts and put it in water and you drink that or sip on that, it's the easiest way to neutralize acidic waste that's in the gastric pits or held within the gastric pits of the stomach until it can be eliminated.
We're doing that now, and I must say that the reading about your explanation about the function of the stomach, the way you just spoke about it, was so revolutionary to me. For so many years, I thought my stomach is shot. I have no digestion system. I thought my digestion is so bad. And I kept going to healer after alternative. I rarely go to medical doctors. I went to so many alternative healers, and they all gave me enzymes. And every time I took an enzyme, I had a worse stomach ache than ever. I couldn't take them, or they said apple cider vinegar. That was horrible. I couldn't take it. And what I realized from your book and from watching your videos, it's the chewing of the food that does the digestion, not my stomach. And I was blaming my stomach all these years. Well, meanwhile, I was inhaling my food and not chewing it.
And you have to chew it, and that was just common sense that our mothers would remind us, chew your food well. And you have glands in the mouth, and those glands actually increase the pH of that environment. So one of the stomach's purposes is to actually supply sodium bicarbonate to what I refer to as the alkalophile glands in the alkaline buffering system. So so the production of sodium bicarbonate and potassium bicarbonate takes place in the cover cells or the lining of the stomach. That can either be released onto the food to raise the pH, to bring it up to an 8.4, or it can be released into the blood or interstitial fluids in order to manage and maintain the biochemistry there. So when it's producing sodium bicarbonate, it also produces it for the pancreas. Pancreas secretes sodium bicarbonate through the pancreatic duct as it comes out of the stomach. Food is then like going through a car wash. It's literally saturated in alkalinity. And when you put food in the mouth, the salivary glands are also secreting alkalinity of sodium bicarbonate. So the pH of the saliva, so when you're chewing, you're not only masticating the food, but you're also releasing acids that the salivary glands are then secreting sodium bicarbonate, which has been supplied by the stomach. So as soon as you start thinking about food or about eating, the stomach begins to produce sodium bicarbonate in preparation, not to digest the food, but to neutralize the acids of the food. And this is very, very important to understand, and what I would like anyone who's listening to this video to literally test this theory, because it's actually a fact of what I'm telling you, a physiological functional fact that the stomach is not an organ of digestion, and hydrochloric is not responsible for digesting food. Your teeth are responsible for that, and all the glands associated with the stomach are in fact releasing these compounds to raise the pH in preparation of that food, which needs to be and must be in a liquefied state, so it can be then biologically transformed in the crypts of the small intestine into embryonic cells that become new blood. And it is the blood that becomes our body cells. Okay, it is blood. The red blood cell is the primary stem cell that becomes bone, that becomes muscle, that becomes our our organs and glands and tissues. So if you want to build muscle and bone, you have to build blood. And where's the focal point of blood building? In the crypts of the small intestine. And this is as one gets older, people start producing less blood. So quantity is a problem, as well as quality. The quality of the blood determines the quality of your health. So, if you're looking like you're aging, when you start focusing on this type of lifestyle and you start eating the right foods, then the aging process slows down and you start reversing the aging process. And so people that attempt to do this, well, not attempt, but actually do it, within a period of anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, this will reverse this aging process. And people who haven't seen you for, let's say, a few weeks will ask you, what you're doing, and after 90 days, a very common comment that's made to people is, is in the form of a question, have you had plastic surgery? Or who's your plastic surgeon? Because people can't believe that you can reverse the aging process. And this is what can happen to your skin, because the skin is made from blood. So if you have skin problems, that's a blood problem. Your eyes are made from blood. Your heart is made from blood. So if you're having heart problems, that's a blood problem. And the focal point of that blood problem is the small intestine, and the ability of the stomach also to manage and maintain the alkaline design of the body. So my whole work is, in the last 4 decades, has been directed towards helping people understand not just the anatomy, but the physiology and functionality of organs and organ systems and how they interact with each other. And here again, I gave you the first hypothesis of my work, which is the human body is alkaline in design. When we're in perfect health, in pH balance, it's because, we're in that particular state. The second premise of my hypothesis is all functions of every organ, every gland, every cell, the function of that produces acidic waste. It's a waste product. One of those, which is lactic acid. Another one is citric acid. But these major metabolic acids, if not properly eliminated, okay, through the 5 channels of elimination for women, what are they? Urination, perspiration, defecation, respiration, and menstruation. This is why when women go through menopause, they end up gaining weight, because they're not releasing those wastes during that month. It's the menstruation cycle is an elimination cycle as well, to remove acidic waste. And so that's a function that slows down, and women suffer from that. So you have to be very, very alert to the fact that if you don't want to go into menopause, or if you don't want to experience the symptomology of menopause, you simply have to manage what you eat, what you drink, okay, what you breathe, the exposure to electromagnetic frequencies, what you think, what you feel, and what you believe. Because in that second point of my hypothesis, that the human body produces by function. So the human body is alkaline by design, although is acidic by function. And if we don't remove these acids through the 5 channels of elimination for women, 4 channels of elimination for men, we experience the symptomology of dis-ease. And I've actually classified that into 7 stages. And I wrote a book many years ago called One Sickness and One Disease and One Treatment. And the one sickness and one disease is the overacidification of the blood and then interstitial fluids due to, an inverted way of living and eating and thinking. So that's the one disease. The stages of that, of that one disease begins with lack of energy. It's called enervation. The second stage is sensitivities. Those would be associated with, little aches and pains and nuances, a little acne breakout or a pimple or what have you. Here again, symptomologies of sensitivity. The third stage of acidosis is called irritation. The fourth is inflammation. It's very important to understand that you cannot have any inflammation in the body without an acid present. So that whatever that acid is, and there's 1,000 different compounds, I just mentioned a few of them, some of the major ones. And that comes, once again, it comes back to what you're eating, what you're drinking, what you're breathing, what you're thinking, your lifestyle, even electromagnetic or magnetic fields, electrical fields do affect, the acid loads in our body. But that's another topic. Okay, so we've got enervation, sensitivities, irritation, inflammation are the first 4 stages. The last stages, which are more serious, is induration. This is when we end up with stones or calcifications. When the body can't remove its waste, it starts solidifying this acid, and this is where we end up with breast stones that precede the cancer, or brain stones before the cancer. Cancer is a degenerative condition. So induration is a precursor to what? Ulceration, and that's the body's inability to deal with its acid loads. So now we're talking about lesions, and the 7th stage, which is degeneration. Degeneration is all the degenerative conditions. These are not specific diseases. The specific disease is degeneration caused by an overabundance of acidity over a period of time, of which the body cannot properly eliminate. So when a cancer patient comes to me and asks, is there anything that we can do? And the answer is absolutely yes. But if you're unwilling to change your lifestyle and willing to change what you eat, drink, breathe, and think, and provide an environment that's conducive for healing, and literally take yourself out of this electromagnetic field of pollution, and start living a more alkaline lifestyle, this is how you reverse degenerative conditions, whether it be, a multiple sclerosis, or whether it be an inflammatory ductal cell carcinoma, which has no treatment whatsoever. It's an unknown pathology. It's idiopathic. But here again, the pathology has been described. It's very simple and it's very treatable, not by current conventional means, because current conventional means are treating symptoms, not the underlying cause. And something as simple as the pathology of an upset stomach, which is currently not described in any medical text other than the symptomologies associated with it, is very simple, but it changes the whole narrative. And when you're changing the whole narrative, it's like Dr. Neil Solomon, who became, a good friend, and we worked together at the United Nations to try to educate children around the world about, lifestyle and diet and changing their diets and what foods are helpful and which foods are harmful or acidic. And but anyway, he was the the he worked at as head of research at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, and he said about my work, because he was sent out by Tony Robbins to do an investigation of my work, and he ended up spending 3 days he was so fascinated with, and it was one of the reasons why my book Sick and Tired actually got published. But he said something that he wrote to Tony, and he shared it with me. He said, Dr. Young, and I'm quoting Neil Solomon, Dr. Neil Solomon, who's a PhD and also an MD, and head of research at one time, and also was nominated by President Nixon as the Surgeon General. He actually turned it down. But he said this of my work, that Dr. Young is on the threshold of a new biology that will change the medical and biological worlds as we know them today. Close quote. And another story that goes along with that, later in 1999, I was invited by the Chinese government. I'd never really been to, I hadn't been to China. This was my first time going. And of course, I wanted to see the Great Wall and go to the palace there there in China, Beijing, China. And I had an opportunity by invitation to speak at Tsinghua University to the scientists there that were trying to find a cure for cancer. And after my lecture, all those who had been educated in the West left. Those who had been educated in the East, which are more holistic in nature, Chinese medical doctors that still valued and appreciated the teachings of their fathers and their mothers, said, Dr. Young, we're very grateful that you came. You validate scientifically the efficacy of Chinese medicine.
Wow.
And the director after that took me aside and says, Dr. Young, you're not Eastern medicine, nor are you Western medicine. You're something in between. And it said, if you're not careful, you will break the rice bowl of the East and also the rice bowl of the West. And he was basically forewarning me of some of the challenges that actually came to pass of the strong arm of the medical mafia that has not only prosecuted me, but persecuted me for telling the truth, persecuted me for finding and discovering and publishing and speaking about the cure for cancer, even at the hands of a research team at the University of Southern California, headed up by Dr. Andy Gill, proving out and documenting and wanting to publish the cure for cancer and presenting that to the university, which was turned down for obvious reasons. But the bottom line is there never will be a cure for disease. Never, for any disease. There'll only be treatment protocols that will deal with the symptomologies, but not the underlying causes. And this is the way it is right now. And that's why many people refer to the medical system as the medical mafia, because it's based upon a false narrative. And that false narrative is related specifically to the underlying causes, which they are suggesting or categorizing, particular symptomologies that really do not represent the underlying cause of disease. But it does sell a lot of nutraceuticals and also pharmaceuticals, because for them, they pretty much control both sides of that business worldwide.
I know you walk into a health food store, it's overwhelming. You don't know what to look at next, and it's
Yeah.
yeah. And this is one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, I wanted to do this video with you, is because there are so many misconceptions, and I feel that the misconceptions have to do with improper education. Not just for doctors, but when I went to school, we learned biology, and we learned it totally wrong from what I can see right now. And it makes it hard for people when they hear something so different than what the doctor says. It makes it hard for them to accept it. And that's why I feel that your work is so important, and your speaking engagement should be more and more and more. I'm sure you're doing a lot of it, but it's so important to reach people, because you have a way of explaining it very well, and you have such a conviction of it because of the way you live. You're an example of it, and that's what convinced me, because to switch, like within 24 hours I was switched. And
Well, I first came to Budapest in the early 2000s, and have done many lectures there, and also at one time was actually manufacturing our products out of Budapest, and distributing those throughout Europe. That's not the case now, but so I would travel there on numerous occasions, and there is a group of people there in Budapest, Hungary, that are still following this protocol. And yeah, and so uh, in fact, the pH Miracle book, if you search for it, you'll find it in Hungarian.
yes,
I don't.
I know, I've recommended it to many. Yeah, it's wonderful. I was so happy to see that.
Yeah, so it's the pH Miracle book is published in 27 different languages. So so I'm grateful for that, because not everyone speaks English, or Spanish. The book's in Spanish as well, but yeah, so I'm happy that the Hungarian language, the Russian language, the former Soviet Union, of course, countries like Ukraine that speak Russian. So the book's in Russian and Chinese, uh, French, and of course, I've already mentioned Spanish, Italian. I have 7 books that are in Italian. So yeah, so Italy really picked up. But I was going to Italy quite often over my career, and I love Europe. Both the Western Europe and Eastern Europe, and and the people of Budapest are such wonderful people, such a beautiful people. So I feel very much at home. I must have some Hungarian blood in me or something. I don't
That's what I thought, because I never lived here. I moved here with my husband, and I've never been here before. And as soon as we first came to visit a year before we moved here, and when the plane landed, I started to cry.
know.
I felt like, oh my God, this feels like home. And I didn't know why. And then a year later, we packed up. And
And
after
and you
retirement,
and you came back, right?
well, I never lived here before. My husband's Hungarian, but
Okay.
he left in 1967, and it just came for visits. He never thought of coming back, but we
hmm
both felt so connected to this place. So now we're here for 8 years already, and I love it here. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I hope that traveling will in the future normalize, so that it's possible travel again to take place without all the restrictions
Yeah.
that are
I hope.
associated with the current pandemic. So,
I have another question for you. With many detoxification, and I understand that once you start this kind of diet and you start to um, eliminate the polluting substances like the meat and the eggs and all of those,
mhm.
uh, whenever you do a detox like that, there's usually a healing crisis. Is that the case with this as well? Because sometimes I find that when a healing crisis happens, people think they're getting worse instead of getting better. Is it
Well,
something?
it depends on how you approach this. If you approach it from the point of biochemistry and you take it slow, one of the things people can do is by using the four salts, you can actually take that in the morning, you take it in the evening, and then each time that you urinate, that if you will test the pH of your urine,
Hmm.
and on a scale that goes from 0 to 14, the ideal pH, of course, is going to be up in the eights. So if you will focus on gradually moving the pH up, because most people on the planet are living in interstitial fluids that are running between 5.5 and 6.5. And of course, this is why there are so many illnesses and so many diseases. But if you will change that interstitial fluid, that river, okay, river of fluids that flows through every organs and organ system, that you'll manage that by testing the urine, which is a product of the interstitial fluids, and keep that urine pH at 8.4. So take a scoop of four salts and approximately 120 mLs of distilled or alkaline purified water. Take it in the morning and you take it at night. And then as you test the pH during the day, anytime your pH is below 8, if you'll take another scoop and put it into 120 mLs, which is 4 ounces of water, and that's purified water, and drink that, you'll find just doing that one thing will make a world of difference.
Yeah.
And then if you can look at the foods that you can eat freely, that because I have a chart and a list of foods that you can take. And of course, I was showing you one of the major foods that that is very helpful for building blood are the green juices and the green fruits and vegetables. And
Mhm.
then focus on things like rather than bananas, I would suggest avocados. And then all of the grasses like wheatgrass and barley grass and kamut grass and straw grass and dog grass. And there's a plethora of foods that can be ingested. And of
Yeah.
course, you'll want to steam these, or you can eat them raw. You can also juice them or blend them. But if you do eat them whole, you need to chew them very, very well, because
Mhm.
anything that's not in a liquid alkaline state, the body will release that as waste. The body can only utilize and transform liquefied alkaline food. So this is very, very important. And so when you're talking about this protocol, if you have a dirty fish bowl, okay, you can either treat the fish or you can change the water. But as you purify this, you want to do it slowly, by managing the pH. And by doing that, gradually start changing, you know, and moving to a more alkaline lifestyle and diet.
Yeah.
And of course, some people are more toxic than others. So, it may take a little more time, but best thing to do is to go slow. Don't push it too fast. It'll eventually work for your benefit, as you move to what I call the COWS program. The COWS is an acronym that stands for chlorophyll, clay, oxygen, oil, water, and then the S on the COWS is for salt, sunshine, and exercise. I usually put an S on that, sexercise, so that you're literally focused on then a plant-based alkaline diet, preferably high chlorophyll content, because it's the chlorophyll that helps to build the blood. The molecules of chlorophyll contain energy, life force. In the molecule of chlorophyll is an atom called magnesium, and it holds light. And when that plant loses light, the leaf or the stem or the plant will die. So green contains light, and when you eat green, you're actually eating a food, a biogenetic food that transfers its life and light to your life and enlightens you. So green foods are full of light and life. Even though we can appreciate the beautiful autumns in Budapest or in Salt Lake City, Utah, where the leaves start changing. The leaves are changing because they're losing their photons of light from the chlorophyll molecule, and that's when the leaf dies. The same thing happens to us. So as we move more towards a plant-based diet focused on high chlorophyll content foods, this is how we improve our energy and also improve our blood. If you look at the molecules of blood, and of course, if you look at blood, which I've been doing for years, the actual healthy state of blood, that when you're looking at blood, should be round and symmetrical, even in color, even in sight, even in shape or size, I should say. And this is what it should look like. Okay, so swimming in its fluid of plasma, the vascular fluids, healthy blood looks like this. But when blood has lost its light, which is the hemoglobin, because hemoglobin the body uses to buffer excess acidity, that blood can be coagulated and start clotting together, causing circulation problems, or the actual targets of these cells where we have a loss of hemoglobin due to the fact that the diet is low in high chlorophyll content foods. When you start eating a diet full of chlorophyll, you start producing healthier blood. And of course, the membranes of blood are made from oils. So flexible oils, polyunsaturated oil, that's where the O comes in. Yeah. And so as you're building healthy blood, you begin to build healthy body fluids. And rather than treating the fishbowl, you're actually changing the water or the environment, rather than treating the cells, which is a metaphor. The fish are a metaphor for our own body cells that make up our organs and glands and tissues. But they're only as healthy as the water they swim in. And this is the kind of water should be an alkaline, purified environment that's free of cellular debris.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love that analogy.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes.
You've mentioned in the interview with Charlie Ward, you mentioned, trying to read it here, glymphatic system. I've never heard of that before. Could you say a few words about that?
Well, the glymphatic system, like the interstitium organ, are new discoveries within the last 2 to 3 years. But the glymphatic system is a system that is in the cranial area of the body, in the head. And what happens is when you're in the not the alpha states, but when you're in the REM state of relaxation, meditation, or sleeping, the brain begins to shrink, and literally, as it presses in, it releases its acidic waste into a system called the glymphatic system. It's like the lymphatic system, and it enters into the lymphatic system as it dumps its waste product from the functionality of brain cells. The neurons produce, even though they operate on electrons, they produce chemical waste. And that chemical waste, of course, is eliminated during, the deepest sleep time, where the brain begins to shrink and push out its waste into this lymphatic fluid or glymphatic fluid to be released into the lymphatic system to be carried out through perspiration or through urination or defecation. So that is a system that is essential. That's why rest is so important, because during rest, and particularly deep sleep, is the time when the brain releases its waste. And when that waste is released, then the brain expands back out and is functional at a higher level again. So it's very important that we receive or have good rest on a daily basis. And when we don't get good rest, of course, this can affect our thought processes, because our cells are bathed in these waste products that cause neurological problems. And so this is one way in which you can help yourself as you begin to alkalize, as you begin to hydrate with alkaline fluids. This will help you to fill up your rivers and streams within your own body, to move the acidic waste from the glymphatic system, from the brain to the lymphatic system, or from the interstitial fluids into the lymphatic system, to remove the acidic waste from cellular function of our organs and glands and tissues.
Is that what causes night sweats? Is that why we sweat so much at night?
Night sweats is the body's release of acidic toxic waste from the lymphatic and glymphatic system coming from the interstitial fluid. Yeah, so this is, and I've written a paper on that. If you go to drrobertyoung.com, you can read more about the glymphatic system and how it interacts with our other body fluids, and how important good rest is as far as maintaining the alkaline design for our brain cells. Our brain cells should be bathing in an alkaline environment. And this alkaline environment of interstitial fluids is essential, because from brain function, which again is an electrical process, since all body cells run on electrons, even though that's an electrical process, the function of this creates a chemical waste, which is then deposited in the interstitial fluid, which is then eliminated through the glymphatic and then the lymphatic system through pores of the skin, i.e. night sweats, or in the morning when you first get up, you eliminate through urination. And that's why it's very important to test the urine pH, because that is the most acidic urine of the day, is the first and second voids of urine. So it's very, very important that you test the pH of the urine to make sure that the color is a dark green to a blue, which is in the range of 8.4 on a scale from 0 to 14. Ideally, the interstitial fluids for health and regeneration should be at a pH of 8.4.
Oh, cool. That's wonderful. Oh, this is so wonderful. I'm so grateful that you're doing this and that you're willing to come to speak with me today, because I find I find such a relief, and it's I can't tell you how wonderful it feels to get up from a meal and not have my stomach burn and not have the fear of, oh my God, now what's going to happen? I've eaten this and this and not feel good afterwards. And I'm just hoping that people will hear this and take it in and um, be able to bypass the fact that it's so radical and different from what they've heard.
Well,
Because
there's a beautiful place in Hungary, and I know there's lots of greenery and lots of beautiful trees there that you can go, but there's a place in Hungary, and that I visited it and also had a retreat there. One of the times that I came to Hungary, and I wanted you to know about it. It's called the Spirit Hotel.
yes, I looked it up actually. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, the Spirit Hotel contains thalassal pools or springs, and these are naturally alkaline at a pH of 8.4 or higher. And so you have concentrations of sodium and potassium and magnesium elements that when you go into these pools, they can literally pull acidic waste out through the pores of the skin. And so the pools there, people go there for healing. The Spirit Hotel is a beautiful place of regeneration that is very close to you, only a few hours away out of Budapest, where
Yeah,
people can go for healing. So I highly recommend that for people in the Ukraine, for people in Hungary, for people in Romania. There may be other places, but this area of thalassal pools of bathing is very similar to what we recreated in Sardinia, Italy, in order for healing. But this is natural. This is not man-made. In Italy, it's actually a restructuring of the water through increasing or decreasing various elemental concentrations of saline or sodium or magnesium. Also, a very, very beautiful place to go is in Sardinia, Italy, at the Forte Village. You can look that one out. If you want to learn more, you can actually look at phmiracleretreat.com. That's
okay.
phmiracleretreat.com. And even though I'm not there, the pools are there. The facility is there, and you have access it. So if you want to go to Italy, to the island of Sardinia, or if you want to go to the Spirit Hotel, I highly recommend. There's other hotels out there, but this one is the one that I'm familiar with, and very much appreciate knowing it's there. And I think more people in Hungary should know about these beautiful places. I think there are those that do, but I think in mass people should realize that they have healing waters that are available to them that they can go in and bathe in and soak in and literally regenerate their bodies.
Yeah. We're planning to go to this one for sure. I've actually called them, but at that time there were still restrictions. But now there's no more restrictions here, so you can walk into any place without a passport or I mean that you've had the injection or
Mhm.
without without a mask. So I'm going to look into it again, and I definitely want to go there.
Yeah, take a weekend uh, holiday, 2 or 3 days, and enjoy the Spirit Hotel. Perfectly and profoundly named. You
Yeah,
know.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope you can come here. I hope all this nonsense with the if there's any pilots left, it would be really nice if you could come.
Well, I'm hopeful too. I'd love to come to Hungary, and I want to go back to Romania and the Ukraine, and appreciate the opportunity to travel, and have traveled quite extensively. And so I'm grateful that I've had those opportunities during this time of restriction. But here again, I hope that opens up, and that more people can to know the truth, and that truth will set them free.
Yes. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Everything. I thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything that you're doing. I feel that it's the most important um, revolutionary type of message
Hmm.
that the world desperately needs. And I feel that this is not only the biology of the future, but it's the healing of the future. And so many need it. So
Well,
thank
that's a great title for this discussion.
you. Yes.
The biology and healing of the future.
Yes. Okay. It shall be named that.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
take care. It's nice to see you again and to speak with you and to share. And I look forward to meeting you in person
Absolutely.
in the beautiful city of Budapest.
Oh, that'll be wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
All the best.
All the best to you too.